In today's video, we're going to be having a look at the Hong Kong situation. We're also going to move into what's going on with that Hong Kong situation in relation to America and China. In addition to that, we're going to have a quick look at Singaporean GDP figures and their expectations for the future. Hello and welcome to another ACY Securities Market Update. My name is Alistair Schultz and I'm going to be your host for today's trading journey. Now, interesting enough, you'll notice straight off the bat we are back in the studio. We've had a couple of days set up to try and get it all back on the ground. We still have some more stuff to go on in terms of setup here for our main office in Chatswood, but they will be rolling in over the next couple of weeks. All our services will continue in full, so please do not be concerned about whether or not you'll be still getting the same service from us all the way through our setup back to the office. Now, moving on with today's tasks. The first thing to have a look at is what's going on with Singapore. Over the weekend, we saw that China has enacted a new national security law. Unfortunately, we don't have a great deal of information about all the details of that national security law and what it does. But what we do know is that we have seen riots start back up in Hong Kong. And of course, there has been a lot of investor confidence disappearing very quickly with the idea of foreign investment into Hong Kong. We've heard from the likes of UBS, Macquarie Bank, and a few other banking entities that are already starting to consider moving their banks elsewhere purely because of all the civil unrest that is really occurring on the ground. Now, naturally, this has brought some other issues as well from the political side of things, both in China and America, but notably in a lot of other countries as well who have put in a little bit of word towards what their thoughts and opinions are on the whole situation. The big one that we're really seeing at the moment is that Hong Kong, much like Taiwan, has been a province of China for quite some time, since in fact about 1997. Now, regardless of this factor, they have operated under a democratic sort of society, as opposed to the sort of communist side that China has. So there has been a very big change since when we saw the UK and the United Kingdom giving back Hong Kong, or at least losing their lease terms. So now we have an interesting situation that's occurring on the ground. And of course, the US is trying to step in to some level of degree, feeling like they have a level of authority there. Now, whilst they don't exactly have any authority there, they are obviously passing bills and trying to support the Hong Kongers as much as possible. So there has been some more tensions occurring. We've seen a lot of tension there last year when it came to all the trade war stuff. We've now seen some greater tensions occurring with the COVID-19 and the pandemic. And now that has all continued. It is all starting to bubble up again. And what we've seen since the early 1950s is that we've had both China and America really pushing and antagonizing one another a little bit before retreating. I'm not sure if that's going to occur again this time because there has been some talk that we haven't heard from for a very long time, especially with the words like Cold War. So there has been a bit of bait on both sides and they're both taking it very quickly. So it might be an idea to keep an eye on what's really going on with Hong Kong, to maybe have a look at what's going on with the US situation and of course China's relationship with them as well. Moving on from that today, I have a little bit to talk to you about on Singapore. Now, Singapore has put out some guidance to say that they are expecting a 7% contraction on their GDP. This is obviously a major problem. They are a trading hub. They make most of their produce and build a lot of their GDP via the implementation of being able to transport goods from one place to another and, of course, operating as a financial sector. With COVID-19, it has put a lot of restrictions in place. They do not have the natural resources that other countries like Australia and Africa and the US all have at their disposal. So they do rely heavily on that services industry. Without the service being required because you don't have people traveling there, you start to get big problems. So we are hoping that that improves. Previously, they set guidance for it to be between sort of 2 and 4%. Now they've expanded that to 7% contraction. Obviously, that's really big numbers when we're talking about gross domestic product. For a contraction that far, there are going to be a lot of other implications, and there are going to be several other things we're going to have to be looking for in the future, such as unemployment. We're going to have to look at housing and how the pricing is going there. We're going to have to look at all the trade and what the relationships they can build and maintain whilst we're still seeing lockdowns. So all of those figures are going to be important to see how quickly we can get a recovery occurring in Singapore. Now, the next piece that I'm going to be talking about today is actually about Australia. Now, schools went back yesterday, and today we have 2 schools that have closed because there has been students with COVID-19 there. So just as I was talking about and iterating earlier on in some of the other videos about the idea of having a quick lockdown and then little clusters striking again. We've already seen it day 2 of schools going back and the lockdowns being eased in Australia. So the chances are that if it's occurring here, it's going to occur elsewhere in the world, and we are going to have these little clusters that occur. It is going to be continued, but business and life has to sort of go on. Now, regardless of whether my thoughts and opinions are that we should be continuing on, everyone needs to remain safe and everyone needs to do as much as they can to avoid getting COVID-19 as much as possible, at least so that we don't flood the hospital systems with cases where we might not usually get a recovery to occur straight away. Now, the final thing for me to part with you today is all about the news ahead. The first thing to have a look at tonight is going to be the ECB Financial Stability Review. This report is going to be paramount to looking at what the ECB really sees for their own financial stability right now and for the future. It will also likely mark out some of the conditions as to which they're going to have to operate over the next sort of 12 months. Beyond that, we then have US consumer confidence. Now, it's going to be important to see how business is going in the US. We know that some countries parts of the country are going out of lockdown, but the expectation is that they're going to continue with these little clusters, much like Australia. So business confidence is probably not going to be that high, but it'll be interesting to see on what it was like last time compared to now. From there, we're going to have the Bank of Canada's Governor Poloz speaking. He's really going to be giving a monetary policy report. Nothing too major is going on there. It's just a statement about what's going on in the current events. There is no expected rate changes or anything along those lines, so don't stress too much on that one. But he might even talk a little bit about oil prices, so it might be worth just checking it out if you do trade the Canadian dollar. Now, of course, we also have the Reserve Bank of New Zealand in the early hours of tomorrow morning doing a financial stability report as well. So very similar to the ECB, they'll be giving their expectations. The New Zealand case will probably be quite interesting to have a look at because it's just New Zealand. They've had very low infection rates. They have restarted their economy as to the best of their capability right now. And they are looking at really trying to restart and kickstart that economy as fast as possible. So it would be a good idea to have a look at what they feel, at least from the RBNZ's perspective, on what the economy needs to maintain its stability and what they're looking at doing for it in the long haul. Now, if there's anything from today's video or some of my other videos that you would like to get in contact with me about, feel free to shoot me an email at talk2al@acy.com. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video so you get more great content from me and ACY Securities in the future. Have a great trading day ahead.